Hello, my name is Victoria and I teach American Sign Language at TakeLessons. Are you thinking about becoming an ASL interpreter or translator? In this lesson, you're going to learn all about becoming an interpreter and some of the common misconceptions about this career. So keep watching and don't forget to check out our free online ASL classes. So why is interpreting a good career to pursue? Well, there's many different reasons. First, if you love people and you actually do know the deaf community, you know deaf culture, you'll easily fall in love with it. Another thing is the fact that you get to be a mediator to a group of people that otherwise have struggles in pursuing everyday things. For example, going to the doctor, going to the dentist, having a meeting with the school counselor. Whatever it is, just becomes a little bit harder for the deaf community. So you get to be the person that delivers the message between two groups of individuals, between the workers and between the deaf community. So to become an interpreter, there are some requirements that you have to meet. This does vary all over the country. In different states, there are different laws that you have to follow, but the best thing to do would be to check, see what the state laws are. Sometimes it's a national certification. Sometimes it's a state certification. Sometimes it's having your degree in interpreting training programs. It really does depend. Check with your local state laws to make sure that you are reaching their specific requirements. So if you're an ASL beginner and you're thinking about pursuing interpreting, what are some things that you could do? Well, first, determine your time frame. If you want to become an interpreter in 2 to 4 years, think about going into the interpreting training programs that your state or local colleges offer. Most of the time, these are offered in community college where you can get your associates in sign language interpreting. Sometimes it's a bachelor's program. Once you've figured out your time frame, think about what's going to be best for you as an individual. Sometimes you may need to consider even private tutoring. That's something many interpreters have done. It is a difficult language to learn because it's completely different from English. Different grammar, syntax, but on top of that, even if you know the language, you know the vocab, you know the grammar, interpreting is a different thing than just knowing the language. So you have to work on the cognitive process. Sometimes that takes some extra work. So my recommendations, if you are a beginner, is to think about, am I going to go to college for this and pursue this secularly? Can I look into private tutoring? Getting another interpreter's perspective, someone that I can work with. And another thing to look into is get connected with your deaf community. The deaf community has an abundance of knowledge that even us interpreters can't offer you. The language is theirs. They're native. They'll be able to show you exactly what they need from you as an interpreter. Their advice can be golden. So I would highly recommend, as soon as you can, to get involved with the deaf community. Look up your local deaf chats. Those are going to be some really key things to do when you're starting to pursue this career. So deaf chats are typically set up by the deaf community. Sometimes it's at local coffee shops, sometimes it's at libraries, sometimes it's a movie. It can be many different things. The best way to find deaf chats is by going online. The deaf community will post when they will have a deaf chat. Basically, everyone is welcome. Everyone who wants to practice their sign, whether they're beginners, intermediate, advanced, whether they're interpreters or not, they can go and meet with some individuals from their local deaf community and just chat. That gives you an opportunity to practice, to learn more about deaf culture, and to make some strong friendships within the deaf community. So a common question is, how long is it going to take me to learn this language? And it really depends on you. It depends how much effort and time you're going to put into learning the language. So that means, am I going to go to school for this? If you go to school for this, you're going to be surrounded by the language. You're going to get some amazing instruction from amazing instructors, and you're going to have a lot of time to practice. So learning the language might be a little bit quicker of a process for you. If you're looking to become fluent at home, maybe with a private tutor, if you are studying once a week, your process may be a little bit slower. So that might be a few years to gain fluency in ASL. But regardless, you should be able to have basic conversations within the first couple of weeks. Regardless of where you're learning, how you're learning, it's important to make sure that your sources are those who are actually fluent in American Sign Language themselves. So what I mean by that is you basically have three groups of people: deaf educators, you have interpreters, and you have the deaf community. Those ones would be the ones you would be learning from formally, where you're going to learn the true essentials of ASL. No matter what time frame you have, no matter what way you choose to learn, make sure it's from a professional. So if you've decided that you want to become an interpreter, do you need a degree? This depends, again, on the state you're in. In most states, it's required to have a degree in sign language interpreting, not just American Sign Language, not just deaf studies, but sign language interpreting. Usually that's the precursor to even taking your state tests or national exams. They're going to want to see proof. However, there are some exceptions. In some states, that's not required, or for some people, that's not required. If you are a child of a deaf adult, if you are a sibling of a deaf adult, usually you don't need a degree because you've been around the language your whole life. So interpreting it might be just part of your life already. But for most of us, we need that extra training. Whether it's required in your state or not, from an interpreter's perspective, it's an awesome thing to obtain. The interpreting training program is there to help you not just learn the language, but actually practice the skills necessary for your brain to simultaneously translate something when you're hearing it in a completely different language. So I would highly recommend that if you're going to pursue the career, that you also pursue, at the very minimum, an associate's in the interpreting training program. So do you need a license? Do you need a certification? We kind of touched on this before. Not all the time. It depends on the state you're in. In many states, it is required to at least have a state certification. In some states, it's just a national certification, which obviously is very broad and can get you to work in any state you want to. But there are some states where you just don't need one. But that's where your degree comes in, because you would need that. So really, it's all about checking, making sure that you're obtaining whatever your state requires, or looking for a state that you would like to work in where the requirements may be more beneficial for you. So are there tests to pursue this career? Regardless of the state you live in, there's going to be some sort of test. So let's take, for example, states that require a state certification. You will have a state certification test to pass. If you are living in a state where a national certification is required, you have a national test to pass. In other states where it's not required, you may still have the option to get certified, whether it's the national certification or the state certification. Regardless of that, if you're in the interpreting training program, you have to pass a bunch of tests to make sure that you are qualified to work in this field. And even if you do live in a state that doesn't require anything but you to learn and know the language at a native equivalency level, you're still going to have to pass some sort of exam. This might be by your employer. Obviously, if your resume doesn't say interpreting training program or state certified, national certified, then they're going to want to see your skills. So many agencies will have their own test set up. So whether or not you need a certification, there are some tests you're going to have to pass to make sure that your skills are up to par. With every career, there is some sort of expense. Going to college obviously takes some sort of money. If you're not going to college and you're going to learn this at home, it's still going to cost you something. This might be because you're hiring private teachers, private tutors. Even if that's once a week, it's going to be some sort of expense. So find the route that's best for you and that's going to help you meet your goals. So how much can you expect to make as an interpreter? That's a really hard thing to say because just like with any career, there are many factors that play a role into how much you're bringing home. So that means, where do I live? What's the average income for your local community, your local city or state? You also want to think about how many people are in your local deaf community. If there's a big number and a small number of interpreters, you're in high demand. Your levels of certification will obviously impact. If you are advanced level certified versus basic level certified or versus not certified at all, that's also going to impact your income. So there's many different factors, but you can find more information on that based on your local state and community. So there's not just one kind of interpreter, there are many different kinds of interpreters because there's many different reasons why the deaf community needs interpreters. So we have, first off, what are called community interpreters. Community interpreters are those who belong to agencies. Agencies will get calls from doctors, from dentists, from schools, many different areas where they have a deaf client in need of an interpreter. Those employers will contact the agency will contact their list of interpreters, and that's how you'll get your jobs. So it's always different. You never know your exact situation or who you're working with. Another kind of interpreter are school interpreters, those who work full-time in a school. This might be in a regional school for the deaf if your city has one. A regional school for the deaf is usually a program within the public schools, and they have interpreters there the entire school year. So that would be your full-time job. There are also interpreters who are hired specifically by colleges and universities, so you might also find a school job there. So those are school interpreters. We also have video relay service interpreters. These are those who work on the video phones. So they work in an office, sometimes remotely, depending on the company that you're working for, and they answer and mediate calls between hearing and the deaf. So that's a really awesome one to look into as well. We also have medical interpreters. In some states, it's not necessary to have a medical certification. However, if you went through the interpreting training process and the program, you'll know how to do it nonetheless. So even though that's the case, and community interpreters can technically, in some states, interpret medically, in other states, that's not the case. And you'll have those who work specifically in hospitals. We also have court-certified interpreters. A community interpreter likely will not be in the courtroom interpreting any trial. That's one type of certification that you would have to take a test for. So now you're ready to start interpreting. Where do you find your job? Most of the time, you can find them online by just searching for interpreting jobs in your area. Sometimes there's an exception to this. Agencies may not always put it out there that they're hiring, but they are always looking for new interpreters. So agencies is your best bet. You are a shoo-in if you are really, really skilled at interpreting. So the best way to get a job with an agency is by knowing who they are. If you're in an interpreting training program already, or even if you're just involved in the deaf community, you'll know about the different agencies in your area. It's very well known amongst the deaf community. The owners are very well known amongst the deaf community. So learn about them and reach out to them. The other type of job that you can easily look for is the video relay services. That is a job that is in such high demand throughout the country because everyone makes phone calls every single day. So those lines are constantly going off. they can use as many interpreters as possible. So know your different companies, do research, reach out to them, look at their requirements, and apply for the jobs. So there are some misconceptions about interpreters. The first one is that we know everything there is to know about ASL. Remember, most of the time, interpreters were new to this language at some point in their life. This was not their first language most of the time. Again, if they weren't raised in a deaf household, that's usually the case. So we are constantly learning. There are always new signs developing. There's always a new way of expressing something, and we still have hearing brains. So our mind is processing in our native language. So don't expect that if you become an interpreter, you're going to be seen just as a native deaf person. We are going to make mistakes. Sometimes we're going to express something a little too English. So don't expect that if you're an interpreter or if you see an interpreter that they're going to be absolutely perfect. Another misconception is that interpreters are just very wealthy. It's a normal job, but again, it depends where you live and your level of qualifications. So don't quite expect that from every single interpreter. A lot of times, in fact, interpreters can be part-time. That's another perk of the job. You're kind of working on your own schedule if you're a community interpreter. So let's say interpreting is not for you, but you still want to use ASL somehow in your line of work. There are some options for you. We have what are called deaf support specialists. Deaf support specialists just support the deaf community, so you can find local businesses in your area that are specifically designed for that. So sometimes they help to find jobs or supply them with the technology that they need, like video phones, things like that. Another job you could look into is deaf education. So deaf educators obviously work in schools where there are deaf students. So this might be a high school, middle school, elementary school, perhaps even higher. Deaf educators just teach and sign. That's a really nice option because you're not having to translate someone else's words. You're just signing from whatever you need to instruct. Another career choice is going to be being an ASL teacher. So as an ASL teacher, you get to not only teach the language, but you get to teach culture and grammar, all the fundamentals of ASL, and you even get to advocate for the deaf community. So lastly, if you do want to become an interpreter, congratulations on realizing that we need more interpreters. Really, that's a great goal to be reaching out for. Here's some tips for you. First of all, recognize that it's going to take time. So be patient with yourself. Have very reasonable expectations for yourself. Don't expect too much. Give yourself time to learn, but also to build on your skills. Another tip I would love to give to anyone who's wanting to become an interpreter is don't focus just on building vocabulary. A lot of times when we get people who want to learn ASL, they will go onto the internet and they'll learn all these signs, but they just don't know how to use it. So don't forget, as an interpreter, you have to be skilled in the language as a whole, not just the signs, your facial expressions, your body language, the way you move your eyebrows. There are so many different things that are involved in this language besides the signs themselves. So become well versed on those things. Another thing that is a great thing for you to do as an interpreter very early on is connect with your deaf community. They want to see that you care, that you want to become a part of the deaf community, because as an interpreter, that's what you're signing up for. You are now a part of their community. And lastly, give as much effort, time, energy as you can into learning. Those are the best things you can do if you want to reach your goal of being an interpreter. What is your motivation for pursuing a career as a sign language interpreter? Leave a comment and let us know. And if you enjoyed this video, consider subscribing so you can receive more helpful ASL lessons.